Welcome to the FlowFIT podcast. This is Dr. Pam Denton, founder of FlowFIT, with Hillary Wells, our program developer. Our special guest is Elizabeth Cole, who will be sharing her somatic journey with FlowFIT through some of her life's challenges. Elizabeth is a dedicated participant in FlowFIT, and we are so excited to have her on the show with us. Enjoy and join us at the Move and Flow studio.
As a breast cancer, I'm looking for the word for myself. I'm not battling breast cancer. I'm not fighting breast cancer. But as a human being living with this breast cancer and being with my friend, I turned her on to a Carly Simon song that's old called Scar. And this is how I introduced that to Hillary this morning, that we're driving through the live oaks and the moss is hanging down. We're listening to this song and it says, there's a wise woman at the end of the bar. She says, lead with your spirit and follow your scar. And I shared with Hillary, and we were talking about looking for something versus stumbling into it. And I stumbled into Nia. I stumbled into Breathe Fit. It was totally, what's that? You know, Hillary. And I was a Studio Nia Santa Fe member, and it was a stumble into. I don't recommend it if we stumble into a husband sometimes. Done that, but this stumbling into what felt like a fit. And then I look at your shirt, Flow Fit. And so there was a flow to the stumble and a fit that came out of it in so many realms of my life. And I love that phase that I've developed a lot of scars during this time period. I can't tell you how many years now I've been doing this, but I believe since the end of 2020, and I have had scars that have been sutured and taped and stapled, and there they are. And I realized yesterday, wow, they point to my heart. So follow my spirit, lead with my heart, and that's where I find the juicy places like this.
What did that stumble? I'm so curious. What did it feel like for you to trust the process and come into this work in the beginning? So there you were in the Nia community, and then you found Breathe Fit, which is now Flow Fit. What were you trusting in that moment that kept you with our practice for so long? Your practice.
I believe it was the word breathe. And at a time where I had been a Nia teacher for 25 years and was in the trainer program, and a lot of work was going on and a lot of transition. And Zoom is actually how this gift came, right? So I was doing Nia. And how did it feel, the stumble? The stumble of Nia was definitely follow my spirit. Spirit said Nia, and I had to Google it. That's how I found Nia. And this time it was the word breathe. And I'm a speech and language pathologist as well. And I recognized after the first class how good I felt, but also that it was a time period for me to become a student of something I didn't know. And the joy of that is I've been in a birthing process, I believe, with this as it's gone through its transitions and is here now as Flow Fit. So that breath, having been through life and death with human beings, is so vital and so important. And I had had COVID as well, and I had things to heal, and I needed to be a student. And I believe they say, I don't recall who says it, the teacher will appear. And that's how stumbling is. When I stop looking, I may be stumbling, and it may lead me right to my teacher. And perhaps the teacher catches us as we catch our breath. There's a good catchphrase. That became a focus in my life, Pam. At that same time period, I had the task of creating a Nia routine as a trainer. And in my Zoom room with my training pod, most people had this look. There were 6 at that time. We are doing what? And none of us are in the same room. And then it looked and sounded like this. And I said, perhaps what I see is stillness and a pause. And our routine became getting acquainted with the pause, finding the stop and the wait to sense the pause and allowing that breath to drop us into a pause. So pauses are underrated.
I see you as a kind of a master of the pause, Elizabeth. You're so good at it and you're so thoughtful and well spoken. And I think that comes from taking that time to go in. And I know that when you do a FlowFit class, you go deeply in and you always have something profound to share with us. So it's so much more than a physical practice, of course, as we know it. We work with all the levels of being a human. And ultimately the transformation of energy into flow from a state of stress or frozen or stuck into flow. I always feel that you have that experience since day one. I think it was 2021. That's when I started teaching it at Studio Nia Santa Fe. So it's been 5 years almost. Continuing that flow through some very challenging experiences in your life and knowing, showing up over and over again because this work supports you and allows you to flow in such a beautiful way through some of life's most difficult experiences. And so you've been a huge inspiration for me.
Thank you. And I would say I just came from class with you guys, right? So my clothes turned purple and pink and blue, and the sensation inside me is maybe these colors right now, and perhaps is why I grabbed this sweater. This deep spiritual connection. And Hillary, you said this morning, take a look and see what's happening. And I invite you to close your eyes and go in and experience it. And so that invitation is there every week. So that invitation this morning, open your eyes if you need to look, and we look, and then close them when you can. At this point, I can mostly keep them closed throughout this experience. The moves and the rhythm is there. So that invitation, thank you so much, is always there. Close your eyes. And what a new experience to move and breathe that close to my interior self. And the challenges have been insurmountable. And yet I've been in this room with so many more people who have been through challenges. And as you know, we have the gift of many talents in our Zoom classes, in our FlowFit classes. The life experiences and the scars have healed with all of us, wrapping really in this color of a pink blanket. I've been through so many things, including the burial of my daughter's ashes, the scattering into the earth, having had this class and knowing that each person in that room were anchoring into supporting me in life through our breath. So that constant gift of not only am I getting fit, but I'm also being embraced.
Wow, that's so powerful. And that's one of the things that makes FlowFit so different, right? I can't go to a gym anymore. I walk in there and I don't feel that warm, fuzzy blanket of support, community, acceptance. I don't feel that when I go into a gym. Nothing against gyms. People love gyms. That's great. It's just not for me. I need to have this holistic experience of I am conditioning my body, I am conditioning my mind, I am conditioning my emotions, I am conditioning my energy. I'm transforming as I work out. It's a 5-dimensional workout. And I'm also being held and supported by other teachers, by the students, by community. We do it online and we feel that community through the airwaves because energy doesn't know barriers. Energy doesn't know time and space. Energy is. And I feel that so powerfully when I'm teaching that we are all connected and we're all here. And I'm so glad that that transmits for you for so many years through the airwaves, through the multiverse.
And how real that is for me. And this I also gleaned and deepened through Nia, through all those years of really being with, this communication within, without, right? I've been cultivating it. I cultivate it many, many ways. But in this particular program, my daughter has even come and we have a student who says, your daughter was dancing with me today. Or I might share, she was here, and hear people say, I felt her. She was here. So there's the essence of her doesn't know these as well. So she just trickles in and joins us at times. And it was during this class that she left this world of her physical body. At the
Wow.
end of the class, I'm the only one, another student's parent left during the class. And my senses, my breathing gave her that support. And yeah, here she is in this electromagnetic wave of our breath, of our beings, of perhaps this room, and perhaps our internet world needs this breathing going on in it. It's a good room to be in. And it's safe. It's safe to fall apart. It's safe to laugh. It's safe to build up and to express.
And to do it at your own pace, as you were talking about after class today. You know, you looked up and you saw Pam doing something completely different than what I was doing, but she was still in the flow. She was following the rhythm, but her body said, hey, I'm going to do this. And that permission to be ourselves and listen, and the invitation always, as you were saying, with the closing of the eyes, and to come in and to come into ourselves and be held by community. There's just nothing like it. And that is one thing that is missing so much in our world in general. I see the fragmented nature of community, and I see people in competition, and I see people pointing fingers at each other. And I can't live like that. I can't live like that. And I won't live like that. I choose not to. And I don't even think I can anymore. So to have this beautiful community, and it's growing, and we're embracing more and more people in, this is how I know how to shift the world's energy. I'm doing this because this is the only thing I know to do, and I know it works. And we're upgrading our nervous systems together. And then our nervous systems send different signals, and they join. And then that gets more powerful, and it becomes exponential. And that's what we're doing here. Nervous system fitness that reaches out and out and out, the ripple effect into the world. And Pam is the brilliance behind it and the science behind it. And she's been studying this for decades. The part that I find so fascinating listening to both of you is that I had this conversation yesterday with someone, and I was explaining that online, exactly, Elizabeth, what you were saying, you can come in with your camera off, and we respect wherever you are. This work was born, you're in a room together. I went to transformational gates in huge rooms with people crying, some moaning, some, face down, being like, what the heck is happening? And all different expressions of this work that we're talking about, going through our challenges of life and healing those scars inside of us. And then the pandemic hit, and it took that pressure off of having to be in the room together, because there is something about psychological safety of the screen. If you can find a room where you can have sacred space in your home, because we did have someone scare their wife one time with dragon breath. So find this beautiful space in your home, even if it's a small corner, where you can fully be yourself, and you don't even have to show up with your camera on. You don't even have to unmute yourself, and you can still be in community with us. So there are levels there are the people who want to unmic and talk, and others who want to listen. And then there is this level that I want to invite into this work, that truly you can show up any way that you are in that moment, sobbing, sad, down, happy, joyful. And there's a full spectrum. And this online environment has given the permission for people to really do that deep inner work. Very scary when you're in a group of people, because if someone's moaning next to you and you've never moaned, or if you have a spiritual energy visit you and you've never had that happen before, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking until you get used to it. And so this space, I'd love to talk about how this online space allows us that psychological safety. What are your thoughts?
I felt safe since the first moment I entered the room, right? And I typically, pre-COVID, yes, did feel safe. So maybe the first thing that pops into my mind is it wasn't safe to go anywhere in 2020, right? No one knows. And then to venture out, and then to be in a room sweating with people, all those things became transformed in order to be with. It was this option. And to become comfortable with was an option as well. Like, what do I want to do? Turn on the camera? I was always the teacher. The camera's on, right? So with the camera off as well. However, for me, the safety was there, and I have people that say, you win the story of how are you still standing? How are you still standing? And I've been through Hillary with many, many of the same things I've gone to, a different story, same thing. But in this place of safety, I felt the moment I stepped in. And perhaps that was through that we were breathing. We were moving the energy centers. And for me, it was a common language, yet a new way of doing this, of being this. So the safety for me was there, and it could be my personality. But I've been in this place of keeping my body whole through fear of losing my daughter, COVID, fear of losing my husband, heart attack, open heart surgery, fear of losing my home, hurricane in Asheville, North Carolina, and then a diagnosis of breast cancer. And those have been cards that perhaps could have tumbled me down. But sensing the safety that's projected into this room and trusting that I am safe, I've breathed through all of it. And I've taken breaks to create the routine, took a break, I come back. And as you're saying that, creating this safe space in our room, our sacred spot, even if it's a small corner, a closet, a bathroom. My dog has participated in this class and grown up in this class. And he's well known in our group of people. He gets hellos, and sometimes he comes and looks into the camera and joins us. The safety that's there has held me with and through all of this. So this transformative place for me to go through those that could have flattened me, it was with the skills I brought in for myself. So I would say to people, look for your scars and listen to them, right? Follow those scars and create our safety. I'm on a telephone today. I typically travel with a pad or a computer so that I have a bigger at home. I project you up onto my big screen. I can do a little bit more, right? And so I'm in a sanctuary in another space. I travel frequently. And I've been able to take this gym to so many hotels and so many challenging places in my life. And even not on screen, I've taken this practice into the surgical room and said, don't worry about me. Look at the hearts that are coming through on my phone right now. Look at the love that's coming through. There are so many people breathing with me. So creating that safe space, that sanctuary, has even once been in my car with the camera off, just to sense the class as I'm driving and to keep my eyes open, but to participate just by listening and allowing the magic of the human body and the sensory neurological system to do its work while I'm just driving. And a little benefit of that magic of my sensory neurological system is, yes, Hillary, going out into spaces, I'm often doing connect breath, and it looks like this in the grocery store. And I get looks and smiles. And so I take it into my life to keep this space in what I consider has been a really challenging time in the world. And, beginning with this, maybe it's not safe to go out. And I think that brings me to the place of how to reach out. I used to say to Pam, this needs to be in every center for people who are rehabilitating. How can we bring this to rehabilitating? And part of that sensory neurological magic and safety is I am ready and willing. I am able. I am worthy, and I am safe. And these connected to me so thoroughly early on. And I suggest them to people. My son is healing right now, finally addressing the loss that's in our lives, 2 years later this month. And he, I sent him texts every day. I am ready. I am willing. And I think it's worth maybe, where did that birth from? I'll give you a podcaster question. Where did those come from, and what are they called, and how did the postures arrive?
Those are from a technique called neuro-emotional technique. It's a beautiful technique derived by two wonderful chiropractors, and it works with the scars. There is a scar technique in it that you actually trace the scar and muscle test, and you can trace the story of the scar and even more healing. So But it's a emotional tracking to the concept of the original event in which something happened to you that got locked down in your emotional, mental, physical system. So we call it surrounding the dragon. And the dragon would be like, I have anxiety. Let's just use that as an example. And then you check to make sure that the nervous system is prioritizing this healing by saying, I'm ready. Is my muscle strong? I'm willing, strong. If it goes weak, if you're weak, that means there needs to be some healing. So Hillary and I decided that we wanted to call them manifestation stances. So we brought in the breathe, move, and imagine triad to do the same thing as we do as practitioners on someone else. It's a self-derived system of proclaiming and intending that you are surrounding your healing with these intentions and that you are going to do it, commit to it.
Wow. And it brings me to something a student said is as I was doing this, suddenly it all became easier. Things that are often harder to do became easier in the class. Maybe maybe lifting my knees. And we were doing a lot of repetitive breathing. And this was a comment from someone, and so I was fascinated by that. Wow. So these we weren't even saying those words, yet those words were happening. Those manifestations were happening in real time with her.
It's saying to your nervous system, hey, it's time to prioritize. FlowFit is built on a prioritization system. So your brain and your nervous system knows what it needs to heal in natural timing when the stress is released from the system. So the stances, these 5 words and intentions, prime the nervous system to say, hey, pay attention. It is now time to lighten your load. And that's what we use it for at first, to release and let go. I'm ready to release. I'm able to release. I'm willing. I'm worthy and I'm safe. And when we take that through the release, then we can say, now what do we want to invite in? I'm ready to invite this in. I'm willing. I'm able. I'm worthy and I'm safe. And there's something about the repetition of that. It's impacted people's lives to believe, hey, we're in really challenging times and we can do this together. We're committed.
I love that. And the word stance with them is about pausing, where we were talking about this pause, pausing into grounding. And we pause and ground with them each move. And I hear stance, my Nia training and my training as a speech language pathologist is that's the first thing I look for in my client. Are they grounded? Are they in a stance that gives them the ability to face this communication challenge or this swallow challenge, which was also a stumbling factor for me. And perhaps you recall that early on, I was fascinated every time we did this, this was also the science behind speech and language and swallowing. And I was like, wow. And so we have had moments where Hillary has incorporated swallowing exercises. I have said, in that movement, this is actually a swallowing exercise. This strengthens. And so I've been also stumbled into the fascination of perhaps the sensory neurological system and the vagal nerve and how it innervates the vocal folds. We can speak in our natural tone, our natural vibrational tone. And maybe that's why words after class come from others and myself that are so grounded and so real. The voice goes to its natural pitch as we breathe and release the tension, and the vagal nerve gets a chance to let us communicate all the way through the gut, right? This traveling nerve, and perhaps through these stances, these pauses into grounding that you've created and shared with us, we do find also our true spoken voice to say what we mean and what we feel in a new way, in a new pathway. So I found it fascinating. We do need and want, I would think, to be able to swallow and not drool or cough or choke, and to be able to speak and voice our needs and our love. And that's also strengthened through this class. And that stumbling into that, what we're also doing swallowing and communication exercises in here. It's anatomically and neurologically happening.
So beautiful. That's awesome, Elizabeth. And I love that you said that, because when Pam and I first started teaching this, we really felt that it helped us be ourselves when we're out there in the world or when we're out there online, find our voice, find our energy of expression, of authentic expression. And that is almost a side effect of what we do. It really, but it becomes for me one of the most powerful effects. It has helped me really step into myself as a teacher, myself as a leader, being able to speak my truth and stand my ground. Today, we were focusing in class on building our core transformer, that part of us that can transform negative, heavy energy into positive energy for our lives and for the world. And so that voice and being able to voice ourselves out there in the world, so and just a side note, I actually had a conversation with my neighbor yesterday who had had a stroke and was doing some work with a therapist on swallowing. And so I gave them some suggestions based on what you've taught me. So thanks for that. And I felt so good that I knew a few things. I had never thought about swallowing before. Then I actually had a bad throat infection in the fall, and it hurt. Just the muscles around my throat hurt to the point where I was afraid to eat anything because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to swallow the food. And that had never happened to me before. So I have this deeper understanding now of the importance of that. And when we work with the nervous system at the level that we do, it helps, like you said, the vagus nerve, the whole system becomes more efficient, and it's starting to work in the way that it was designed to work.
Absolutely, and so magical, isn't it, that the entire body is linked, it's not separate parts. And here we are swallowing, and I love it when I hear, "Let's do the swallow." We've done the swallow lifting the larynx and swallowing. We've done yawn, sigh, swallow, all of these things, so learning. And I would say I don't know that I've been in any class where I haven't received the most fabulous linguistic information, or the students that come and then release their voice to share a hypnotism. What do we do to all of us connect to this one phrase to support this person going into surgery today? Our neurological systems at the end of the class are so ready to say, "Hey, I have something that could help that." And I can text you, or we'll have a little communication with it. And so I love that the beauty and brilliance of so many of the students, as they do this, find their voice to share their gifts with us. And
Yeah.
I often say to people, wow, come to this class. It is full of the most amazing people. Like it is a community of gifts. So I do find this community of gift, and I would love to see all the new gifts that come, right? But that was definitely a stumble in this class. This is also happening. It's very transformative, but the greatest gift is all the talents that are revealed as we breathe and practice. And I saw someone in class today and I was like, wow, I love to see how the transformation happens. And this looks like a whole different person than a year ago. Wow. Do and there they are, they come all the time, and they bring it and do it on the road, and then we're doing it when we're not in the room. And Nia is a lifestyle practice. This is a lifestyle, right? And we've had such deep, intimate conversations, including what was our experience with the last breath of a loved one? And we both had been with our mothers. What was the experience of the first breath of our children? So the first breath and the last breath are our life into this and our life into the next. I believe with all my heart that this is only a version of life. This is one version. And in that last breath, we step into another version. And with that first breath, we step into another version. And that's my true belief. And so, how would we do that without flowing our breath? And isn't that all about the fitness of our body, mind, spirit, and emotion? This ability to know that, wow, we breathe when we arrive here, we exhale when we leave. And that's part of what we're doing all the time as human beings. Perhaps it's new life, inhale, breathe in, exhale, accept a new one. It's always a life and birth every moment in our lives, if we're the lucky one. And so taking that FlowFIT, getting that and being fit with the experience of we live and we die, and which has been prevalent in my life. And yeah, it leaves a scar. It leaves a scar with this community. We're following the scars. Yeah, and I love that that was where these manifestations came from, the scar and the muscle testing. And without breath, the muscles don't work. Without breath, the thoughts don't work. Without breath, the swallow doesn't occur. It's an automatic function that we can lose, and we do end up without that ability. So first and last breath, we're doing them the entire time we're breathing, and then we come into this class, and everyone is a first breath, everyone is a last breath, and bringing new life constantly, and then going to the market and going,
That's so beautiful. I'm thinking about the space between the breath because it's really what we do in between that first breath that we take and the last breath that we take that matters. And I think that is the third part to the triad, the first breath, the last breath, and what's in between your breath. And we spend a lot of time there in between feeling so that we can go to the store and breathe.
we do. And so I have a podcast question for you.
Yes.
We do things in between the breath sometimes, right? We learn to hold the breath. We build that up as feeling that tension and feeling that stress. And where was that birth from? I breathe all the time, but where did these, let's shift how the breath is going and let's hold the breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, or however box breath was very fundamental early on in our classes. And I believe that also created this connection. We're really breathing focused together. And so those holdings, where is that and what does that do to us?
Well, that's such a big principle about what we do. It's called build and release. So I spent a good maybe 18 years in a technique called somato-respiratory integration, studying the rhythms of neurological breathing. And this teaching has 12 stages of healing within the breathing patterns. And there's one that fascinated me in that, and as well as an athlete, and it's the build of the tension in our body, the pressure, and then what happens when we release, and truly what happens when we resolve fully 100% something that's stuck in our body. What does the body do when we go into that build sensation, when we're able to put our mind inside the pressure? Sometimes it's actually an active breathing technique like breakthrough breath in and out through the nose. So when we go into that pressure of that momentous breath of breathing for a long time there, what does our brain and body do inside of that pressure when we bring our brain's awareness to that pressure? So I think it's so applicable to right now because we're in a pressure cooker. There's just so much going on, so much chaos, divisiveness. And this pressurized system of breathe in, hold, or go into a breath for a holding time is about entraining the brain to find the solutions in that pressure, because our brain always wants to find the solutions when it's entrained to the parts of the brain that find solutions. So in that pressure, our body starts searching for the self-corrective solution to our issues, our emotions, our energy, our life. And then when we release it and we let go and we oscillate, we call it, that's where the body starts to self-correct. So a shoulder may be up here and go boom, and drop back into alignment, and then more flow goes through. And so those breathing patterns are signature of FlowFit. They are transcribed over years of studying when we go into the tension and out the other side neuroenergetically. How does our brain correct what's going on, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic? And it's
Wow.
so important. It's important. That's why I have a corporate division of this work. We are working with many corporate leaders applying this work. And because inside of corporations, they are just pressure cookers of chaos and reactivity. So what happens when we're able to engage in that tension and find a solution rather than be a reactive leader? There's a lot of reactive leadership right now demonstrating a very damaged form of leadership. And when we look out into social media, like Hillary was saying about the reactivity and the divisiveness, this breath is so important, because if you are a solution-based leader, if you don't want to behave like that, like Hillary was saying, and you want to live from a different space, build and release breath work and physical movement get you there the fastest.
And the other part is that it bypasses the story. We go straight into the nervous system. You can be in, I love talk therapy. I've been in therapy a lot in my life. It's really helped me through a lot of things, but I've also seen people who stay in therapy for decades running the same story. This bypasses the story, gets it out of where it's stored in your nervous system and in your body, and then you can move on with your life. And that has been a huge thing for me. Pam and I have both healed a lot of very lifetime deep issues for ourselves through this practice. And I shared with Pam recently, I can't worry anymore. I can't even access worry. I can't find it. I can't make myself worry about money. I can't make myself worry about world events or the end of the world or whatever else is happening. I can't do it anymore. It's gone from my system. And I didn't know, I didn't consciously say I'm going to get rid of worry. It happened through doing this work for now almost 6 years.
I've had this conversation this week about stuck in the story, and I'm an acceptance and integration trainer. And in that type of therapy, we begin by listening to the story for about 4 or 5 minutes and listening for the polarities, right? So I believe this is a common thing thread that we're in. And in those polarities, we begin to see the breath shift, right? If we shift too far into one polarity, the breath, I was telling a story that I'm not stuck in and I'm not worried about. I'm with you, Hillary, on that. And Anne said, "Are you aware that your shoulders are now right here?" And I was telling a story about a bad marriage, a challenging marriage that I was in for 20 years. And I realized, my gosh, I'm sinking and hiding into the sofa. I'm sinking and hiding, get small. And when I shifted and changed and took a breath, and with this practice, with Nia, with the tools and acceptance and integration, I have many tools. And I'm so grateful that I've stumbled into them. I stumbled also into that. And this ability to not worry, but to unstick from the story is vital. And in leadership, so important. And I often see tools in the world today to keep us stuck in the story. I'm going to stick you in story. And for me personally in the world today, it feels like here's a story, get stuck. Here's a new one today, get stuck. Here's a new one today, get stuck. So that there's so much stickiness going on. I, in my training, am missing my whole frontal lobe and my executive function when I'm here and when I'm stuck. And so that vagal nerve is saying, I'm in all of your stuck stuff. I'm in all of your stuck stuff. And so when I can relax and take breaths and move, and for me, again, I'm willing, repeating these mantras, then I'm able to access a higher level of thinking. I'm able to open up to what we build as, in speech and language pathology, executive function. And we're leaders of ourselves, right? So we begin here. And in that leadership, I really want someone who can drop their shoulders, take a breath, and access their frontal lobe where these higher cognitive functions are, rather than to create stuckness for me. For me, they're also in their stuck place when the people that I'm seeing in the world that I'm so grateful for this practice is that I sense they're in fight, flight, freeze all the time, and they're going to toss it at me. And I'm using the word they, and I'm not going to apologize with it. The world, the things that are going on, the challenges, even those of us reacting. So coming into this safe room, creating a safe place for myself and learning this technique. And maybe it's just that blow a kiss effect that changes as leadership in the world as I walk through a market. So I love this idea of leadership, and I recognize leadership is about first leading myself. And where is that? And I might say, being in the International African American Museum, I'm promoting them. Yes, I am. They're in Charleston, South Carolina. Fabulous experience of the internationalness of America, right? And some of the tragedy of how it became this way, some of the glory of how it became this way. And I woke this morning thinking, okay, ancestry. I'm now I call myself a somatic sage. I don't know if it's true for anyone else, but for me, it's like, where am I? I'm a somatic sage. This is me. I'm really going in here and listening. It was so visceral yesterday to be in this place. And I woke this morning with, what are my ancestral roots? And how does that affect our living? And how is that a part of Breathe Fit, of Flow Fit? How is that a part of, wow, what am I gifting as a person now, leaving an ancestral part of my chain? And how much does this shift and change? I might say break the chain. How do I break the chain or contribute to the chain? So as we breathe, are we also accessing the DNA, the ancestral roots, and are we healing them? I see two head nods. I want to hear
Yes.
what
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. We work a lot with spirals and spiraling energies. And just like the DNA spiral, we can reconfigure our DNA and what we came in with and rewire ourselves.
We're working with vibrational consciousness. So when we are conceived, there's a vibration that brings the two cells together. And for anyone interested, I would highly recommend, number one, taking our FlowFit certification, because I feel like our embryology section that we just wrote is like hands down one of the most important sections. It talks about how many obstacles and barriers that little cell that unifies masculine and feminine come together, that little bugger, the sperm, has to survive so much to get there. In fact, a whole group of thousands of other sperm, this one little sperm has to win. And then it has to make it through the layers of the egg and penetrate. And at that point, there's a vibration. And I call that vibrational intelligence. There's a spark like no other. And then this one unified cell has to make it a whole other journey through so many obstacles and barriers to implant in the wall of the uterus. So we are a miracle of life. And in this vibrational intelligence is our breath and our memory of who we are. And why I'm saying this is the DNA work. This is where we take people's bodies in flow state, is let the vibration, let your energy heal the ancestral issues. And so I love talking about the different ways to address story, because of course we're going to have to process story. It's not getting stuck in those ancestral stories that may be holding you back. We can transmute that through the vibration that we create with the breath and the movement and the imagination of, hey, I was once one little cell with a spark of life. And look, my miracle of life is here right now. And there's so much more to experience inside of my body at this level of miracle. I just feel like we've been led astray as humanity to understanding, like you're saying, Elizabeth, leaders lead themselves. Lead yourself into understanding what an amazing body you have. And that when you are a leader in all your energy centers, including the fact that you're a survivor and now you're a thriver, you differentiated into your own fingerprint, that we use on our phones and our computers every day. That unique fingerprint is now used with technology. Every day do we think, oh, I can get into my computer because I have a unique fingerprint and I am part of an ancestral chain of information. And I also have spiritual genetics, which is that divine spark that can absolutely ignite my authentic expression as a leader. And we need people, anyone who wants to say, I want to lead this way, bringing this work out into the world. It's a magical, magical practice, and miracles are real. And we can create these miracles in our own bodies and lives. And we need a miracle right now in America. So I'm hanging on for this. Miracles coming.
I'm gonna join you in that one, ditto. And as you're speaking, and probably as we've been talking for a while, I also go back to what I stumbled into. I recall I was in class with Hillary, and she said, maybe put your thumb or your finger into your navel as we breathe. And I came out of the class and said, it's like sucking my thumb. And this nurturing thumb, the sensation of my thumb in my navel, when I'm pumping it and breathing and the diaphragm is moving, it's the sensation of sucking my thumb. And then it led me to this place of, oh my gosh, y'all, that is where we're nurtured. That's the clipped off place and the little scar of our
Yes.
navel. is where we were first nurtured and fed. And then we take that thumb and put it in our mouth often, right? Babies learn about their body through putting their fingers in their mouth. And the last place we close before that is our philtrum. And it's activated as we speak, as we swallow, as we do breath that moves our whole face. It moves, when we're practicing different breaths, we're moving the lips and the tongue and the navel in different ways. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's primordial. I thumb in my navel and sense that. And if you haven't tried it, I invite you to try it. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so connected with the first nutrition I had. And I'm so grateful to my mom for feeding me. And
Mhm.
I've been really interested in what we're feeding our children if we are with child, right? And I had that conversation with my son because I was pretty sad throughout that pregnancy. And I feel as though it changed some of the cellular being in him that he absorbed some of that, right? And I think I probably absorbed some of that from my mom. We're both Wednesday's child who are full of woe, right? And that was always to me like, what? I'm Wednesday's child full of woe? And so, did I receive some of that woe? And yeah, sometimes I'm in woe, but I can also sense this within the woe. So I love sensing that, wow, this connected place we are at our navel, it's where the pump is. I'm doing it now. And in that place, that's my connection to my lineage. That was my nutrition. And then one day they said, you're on your own. Right? And there's a little scar. The navel is a scar. And there's not a visible scar here, but these two lumps are the last place we came together. And as we know, some don't fuse, right? So then we work together with other miracles to fuse the lips or the palate for individuals so that they can communicate more easily, breathe more easily, and swallow more easily. And so I love this. Wow. There's ancestral places for me in my navel and my philtrum, and that's only occurring to me in this moment. And so how is that moving? We're moving that in the whole class. And I might challenge you to ask people, did you move your navel and your philtrum today in your class? They're very ancestral.
I love it. I feel like that is a great place to wrap up with the navel, the umbilicus. I have a chiropractor friend and she knows I call it the navel and she calls it the umbilicus. And she's like, umbilicus, put your fingers in your umbilicus. And then she'll say navel. So, yeah, what I invite people through this conversation as you're listening is to become the scientist of your own body. It is that's what happened to me. I became the scientist of why am I depressed? And then that led me to the chakras and breath work and nervous system work and so it started with I really want to solve this in my life and I'm tired of people telling me what to do. I've got to find it inside of myself because what I was being told wasn't working. So be the scientist of your own body. Put your thumb in your navel. It's so fun. Pump your navel.
And be the lover of your own life, right? I'm the scientist and the lover of my own life. That leadership is so pure and so real. And that, as we close, gives me the fact that this morning, even though a man was in the class, I said, is it okay if I show you what I'm doing? And my friend Ann said, are you loving your breasts? And I haven't been able to look at them. So now my task is to touch and sense and love them as they're still in a healing place. And it's another new adventure for me now of choices for this body. And so being this scientist for my body, being this lover of my own body is the guidance that I'll take with them. And one more tip, in radiation, we hold our breath as a breast cancer patient in order to protect the heart. We expand and hold the breath. And Hillary knows this little tidbit of information. It's challenging for many people to hold their breath and stay relaxed in a posture that's not always comfortable while a beam of light comes into the body and out the body. And to do this with people watching behind the big wall,
Mm.
and I take my big deep breath in each time I would go in, they would say, could you let out a little breath? You're really a good deep breather. And so the conditioning was that I could so easily hold my breath that they needed me to expel just a little. And I found that fascinating. Let go of a little. You're so good at your breath.
Wow, that's powerful. There's so much more to talk about here. Thank you, Elizabeth, for being with
Thank
us.
you. It was such a joy and such fun to be in the room with healers today. So thank you.